everyone. I am Neeraja Ganesh.
And I'm Sneha Ganesh.
I head the education initiatives at Aspire for Her.
Sorry, I'm Sneha Ganesh, and I'm currently a final year student. I am pursuing a triple major in computer science, math, and statistics from Christ University.
And we are called the mother-daughter duo. And that's our story. Thank you for taking time to attend this session today, part of the 4-day mega event. And if you have chosen to be with us, it's a privilege and honor for us, and we will make the most of it for you. Who is she? Can anyone tell us? Who is she? What comes to your mind when you see this picture? I am not able to see the chat screen.
I can see the chat. We haven't got any responses as yet.
Okay.
So from our participants, anybody who wants to answer this for us, who do you think she is? Someone said Facebook.
Well, that's a good point to remember. Anyone else? Lean in. Thank you. Thank you. So I don't know what your name is. It's coming as first name, but we would love to know your name. Vanessa?
Vanessa.
That's good. I think you're closing in, and you've actually given us a fantastic start to today's session, right? So I asked the question, who is she? And she's Sheryl Sandberg. But the response that I got from Vanessa was Facebook and lean in. Why? Because that is the brand that she carries. People may not remember her name, but when they see her picture, they're able to recall a brand of Facebook, because she was the COO of Facebook, we're now called Meta. And lean in, because she wrote a book called Lean In, a top book for any woman to read. And if you have not yet read it, I would recommend that you go and read this book. Why did she write this book? Before she wrote the book, she gave innumerable number of talks saying that women are held back, right? And in every way, she told the women, she encouraged the women to lean into the community of other women so that they are able to progress. And so she wrote this book after giving a multitude of talks. The book did not come first. And then after the book came by, and with the success of the book, she started leanin.org, a not-for-profit foundation, and she started Lean In circles, and they are spread across the globe now. You, as a woman, can start a Lean In circle of yours, or you can join a Lean In circle. That is the brand. Now, obviously, she's written another book, which is called Option B, Facing Adversity, Building Resilience, and Finding Joy. But that did not come as the first recall. And, even the name was not coming in as the first recall, but the brand that she has built is coming in as the first recall. I did see a hands up. Is there a question?
The hand has gone down now, so I'm assuming
okay,
there is no
I'll
question.
move on. You can put the questions on chat and we will take it.
Yes. All right, so now coming into what is personal branding. So we did look at a little bit of an example from Sheryl Sandberg's story, which told us a little bit about what is a brand. So from, if all of you have been listening to what Neeraja just said, a brand is basically nothing but a story or something that talks about who you are, what you've done, your experiences, what you've built, or just something which is associated with your name. So today, if I'm going to say dairy milk or I'm going to say Google, it's a brand. And rightly so, because all of us associate each of those names with a whole lot of things. We associate it with food, we associate it with technology, we associate it with a large booming tech company, so on and so forth. But it's not just that. A personal brand is also for a person. Neeraja Ganesh is a brand. Sneha Ganesh is a brand. Vanessa, you are a brand. And each and every person sitting in this room today carries a brand of their own. And how is it that your personality, your experiences, what you've done, what you've learned, how all of that is contributing to making who you are today? That is what contributes to your personal brand. We will delve a lot deeper into this in the course of this session, but I want to leave all of you with just one thing for the next 30 minutes or so that we're going to talk. Always associate personal brand with you. Don't think about it as something which is external, which is something that is just something which you cannot associate with the person. You and your name is a brand, and we want you to think of it just that way.
Thank you, Sneha. So it reminds me of a few stories, and let me narrate some. And of course, we're talking about stories, so you will hear a lot of stories today. So I decided to get into the field of training and conducting workshops in 2019. And I thought, nobody knows me. And if I offered a workshop, who would come and, join? So I decided to partner with someone who was well known in the industry, in the same field. And I said, I will offer a few webinars. And the first webinar that I offered was on networking. That also happens to be one of my signature talks, just like storytelling is. And we took registrations. We got 96 registrations, quite a lot, for a first timer like me. What actually got me curious was all 96 were women. So I thought, let me go back and look at the promotions that we did, because I partnered with someone else who was a male, and he promoted it on his website, on his company social media, which has got nothing to do with only women or anything like that. And I actually looked at the creative, the poster, to see, did I say anywhere only women? And this is a poster. And nothing, it doesn't say anything, right? Only women. Of course, there's a woman standing there, but it did not say the session is only for women. And then on deeper reflection, I realized that I had launched this after 18 months of my stint in an organization called as JobsForHer Foundation, which was set up to bridge the gender gap in our country. So through those 18 months, whatever I did, online, offline, writing on social media, telling people to come and join the session, my post would say, hey, this is only for women. So come and join and attend. And that seems to have got stuck as a brand for me, that if Neeraja does something, it is only for women. Now, whether it's the right thing, wrong thing, good or bad, that's up to, us to kind of delve into. But let me also tell you another one. So this came by, I think in 2021, suddenly a few days before Women's Day, this post came up on LinkedIn. No one had told me that this was going to happen. Kalanika happens to be a fabric, brand in India. And suddenly I see this post, 21 women rock in saris, day number 4. And I said, oh my God, nobody told me, nobody took my permission. So I actually went back to them and I said, hey, thank you for this. It's a nice thing. But if you had told me before, I may have given you a better picture and a better sari. And they apologized to me. They did. But then I started following them because it was day number 4 and 21. And these were the 21 women whom they were showcasing. Women in saris, rocking in saris. And if you look at some of the names, I mean, there is Smriti Irani, there is Sudha Murthy. Smriti Irani is a politician in India. Sudha Murthy runs, Infosys Foundation. Obviously, Nirmala Sitharaman is there, our finance minister. Obviously, they wouldn't have gone to any of these people and said, can I put your name and picture? Which meant that you are on a brand that people associate as, wearing saris. And of course, I'm forever in saris. And that also becomes a brand. And the last story for today. Couple of years back, there was this global organization who was setting their technology shop in India, in Bangalore. And there was an organization assisting them to set up shop. And they invited me. They said, see, this organization, the CIO, the head of India operations, who now is newly coming to India and starting this setup, wants to understand the diversity and inclusion space in our country. So we are helping put up a roundtable for them, where we're going to invite other heads of technology, D&I leaders, diversity and inclusion leaders, other platform owners to have a discussion. We would like you to moderate this roundtable. So I said, sure, because this is something that I love to do. And I accepted. And when I walked into that room, the person who had invited me to moderate, she came to me and she said, Neeraja, if we think about diversity and inclusion, the first name that comes to our mind is you. And that is why we wanted you for this. So a personal brand is a widely recognized and largely uniform perception of the individual. So if you think of Sneha, what is that comes to your mind? And it has to be uniform. It can't be that one person thinks of Sneha as this and another person thinks very differently. Now, there can be a couple of things which are, there, because you can't be associated as only one. For example, the sari was there and the D&I, diversity and inclusion, was there. But it has to be largely uniform.
All right. So since, like Mom said, we're doing storytelling, so I decided I'll bring in one of my stories as well. So now we're moving in to talk about why personal branding is necessary, right? So this year, I have been to the Target Elevate conference, which is an annual conference that is organized by Target, which is a retail giant. And I was an attendee at the conference. I did not really have any connections with any of the speakers there. I did not know any of the senior folks. I was just there as an attendee because, like I said, I'm a student and I aspire to get into the space of retail technology. So I was there to learn something new. During one of the many coffee breaks we had, I was just out in the lobby and there was this woman who walked up to me and she said, "Oh, you're Neeraja Ganesh." I was fairly taken aback because I did not recognize her. I mean, a few seconds into the conversation, I realized she was one of the technology leaders at Target. And she just walked up to me. I did not have any affiliation with Target whatsoever. I wasn't on any of the panels for the day. I wasn't speaking. I wasn't organizing. Absolutely nothing. I was a simple attendee like the 600, 700 odd others who were also attending. How did she know me? Or how did she just come and say, "Oh my God, you're Neeraja Ganesh"? So I was naturally curious. I asked her, yes, I am, but do we know each other? And she's like, "You probably don't know me, but I've been following your work on LinkedIn very constantly. And I know you to be somebody who has a voice of her own and who posts very constantly on LinkedIn and who is very passionate about what she does. I've been following all your work and I really wanted to tell you that I love what you're doing and keep up the good work." This was in no way something that I expected or anticipated. I've been posting on LinkedIn entirely because one, to build my personal brand, of course, but two, because I love what I'm doing and I'd love for people to know about it and to take away whatever they can from it. I did not in any way see myself being recognized or myself being just remembered by the work that I do on LinkedIn, to an extent that somebody who sees me off LinkedIn is going to be able to walk up to me and say, "Oh, you're that very person I've seen on LinkedIn. I've seen all the work you do and I remember you now." And that is why a personal brand is so important, because you don't only know where it's coming in from or why it's coming in, but somewhere along the way, those dots just join. My posting on LinkedIn or my speaking about the work that I do was in some manner resonating with this senior woman leader from Target, which made her remember me from among the 1,000 or 10,000 other people she probably interacts with on a daily basis. And then from among the 1,000 other attendees at the conference to spot me in that lobby and then walk up to me and come and say, that is a brand that has been built, and that's why it's necessary.
So absolutely. A personal brand helps you stand out from everybody else, like in Sneha's story. It definitely did, right? It makes you memorable. And imagine so many people she must be interacting with on a daily basis on LinkedIn. right? And at that conference, but she remembered Sneha because she found Sneha to be memorable, something about her. And that's what your personal brand does for you. So I want to kind of quote Meeta Malhotra. So Meeta Malhotra was, a partner and director at Ray and Keshavan. Now, Ray and Keshavan actually is India's leading brand consultancy. And, obviously they started at some point in time, and some other point in time it got acquired. But Meeta was part of that, right? And at some point in time, she exited and she started her own company called as the Hard Copy, which is also a kind of a platform, a resource for modern day digital first design led brand. So she's been in the brand field forever. But she asks this question: if you take me out of my current business context, who am I? And she asked this question when she moved out of Ray and Keshav. It had seemed as if her identity had got merged with the company's identity. So Meeta, Ray and Keshavan is what people were associating with. And she says, if you remove the Ray and Keshavan, because now she was no longer part of it, who is Meeta? And the answer to this question could have been nobody. And hence, our titles, where I introduce myself as the head of education initiatives at Aspire for Her, well, they do mean something. But what if I'm no longer that? Ex-director at Capgemini, there was, something put up there. Why was there a need to put up ex-director at Capgemini? Neeraja in a sari is a brand. So that is what personal brands are. And that is why personal brand is important, that you do not become, or you do not need a designation, an organization to build your identity. You build it yourselves. The brand kind of, calls it out for you. Now, let me talk about why storytelling. So some days back, again, I think it was 31st December 2019, and I decided to shop last day of the year. So I went in a cab. I got off from the cab. The shop was on the opposite side of the road, and I was crossing the road. I saw a two-wheeler pass by, and I was crossing, and then I saw the two-wheeler turn back and come. And I thought, is the two-wheeler coming towards me? Or maybe, the person just took a wrong route and is turning back to go into the right route. But anyways, I crossed the road slowly. I went to the other side and I actually stopped because something, told me maybe the person is coming towards me. And the two-wheeler came and stopped next to me. The person removed the helmet. It was a lady. And she asked me, aren't you Neeraja Ganesh? And I was shocked, just like Sneha said, right? She was shocked when this lady came and asked her. I was shocked. On the road, there is somebody coming and asking me, aren't you Neeraja Ganesh? I had never seen this person before. I don't know. I didn't know her. I said, yes, I am. And she said, I thought as much. I saw you getting off from the car and I just kind of crossed. There was no way I was going to be just going away. I had to come back and tell you, thank you. Thank you for all the work that you do for the women like us. Then she put on her helmet, she got onto the two-wheeler, she turned back and went in the route that she had come into. Now, why storytelling? Supposing instead of this story, I had said, Neeraja, I'm really passionate about helping women pursue their aspirations and ambitions. And for that, I am a mentor on a plethora of platforms. I have mentored so many women. I have done so many talks. I've done one-on mentoring. I've done a lot of training and workshops. Maybe I have impacted 10,000 women so far. If I had said this, would it have been as impactful as the story that I narrated? I didn't talk about the number of women I had impacted in my story. I didn't talk about me being a mentor on a plethora of platforms, the number of workshops that I've done, nothing I said. How did I create the impact? I didn't say. But look at that, so, what it sounded like with that story. And that is what storytelling does for you. Okay, we will look at the chat soon. So while there is science behind storytelling, I just want to kind of talk in very simple terms that you and I can understand. Stories are personal. We've been telling stories. You tell stories. And that's the reason we tell stories from the time the child is born and forever. When you catch up with your friends, your relatives, there are stories that you narrate because they are personal and they are relatable. The listeners are able to experience the story. So when Sneha was narrating it, I was able to visualize and kind of experience that I was there at the conference and I'm seeing this woman come towards her. It is memorable. You will remember the story for a long time to come. And the listener is able to capture the story and recollect and reproduce it. How many times have we narrated stories that we have heard elsewhere to some, and even if it is after months and years of having heard the story? Of course, there is, as I said, there is a science behind it. Storytelling affects the brain in a particular manner, which is why that is a very different form and tool of communication than putting, I could not have done, I may not have done any stories in this slide. I could have just left the bullets as they are. And I said, storytelling is personal, listeners' experience, it's memorable. Would it have the same impact as the same narration that we've been doing with some of the stories that are personal to us or somebody else's?
All right. So now we're moving into why storytelling is essential for effective communication. So from the 2 stories that you heard, or 3 stories that you heard in the past, we've kind of established why a story is the way to go when it comes to trying to tell somebody about something and you want them to remember it. But also, how can you use this as an effective communication tool? So about a year and a half ago, I'm a part of an organization called Aspire for Her, where I work. And as part of some commitment for the organization, I had connected with a particular woman who was the CEO of an organization. And she had put me in touch with another person who she wanted me to meet to discuss possible collaborations for my organization. So it was a very work-centric meeting. There was nothing very special about it. We got onto it was during COVID time, so it was a Zoom meeting just like this. We got onto the call and we had the meeting. It went on for about 30-40 minutes. And it was just me and the woman she connected me with. After the 40 minutes or so, the COO also joined the call. And she asked the other woman, did my introduction do justice? I didn't obviously catch what was happening, but I just waited because the 2 of them were having a conversation. The other lady said, your introduction did not do justice because this woman has all the more energy. I was still very clueless. So I said, I'm sorry, I don't quite know what's happening. Can I get a little bit of context? So that's when I figured that before I had come onto this call, the CEO had given this very elaborate, grand, majestic introduction about who Neeraja Ganesh is to this other lady, saying you have to speak to her because she's someone who's so enthusiastic and she does so much of work and she's so absolutely energetic all the time. You just need to speak to her. That was the kind of introduction which was given. And with that in her mind, she'd come to meet me. The conversation progressed very normally. It was supposed to be a conversation just with the intent of us engaging for the work purposes. However, after a week or a week and a half, I received an email from this woman. And she says, we're organizing a global conference for our company, which is the company we were talking to. And I'd love if you can be a speaker on our panel, because the kind of person you are, the kind of enthusiasm, energy, and the kind of work you do, we'd love to see all the other people also who are coming to that conference know more about you. In no way was any of that something I was anticipating. The only thing that was happened was when we went into that conversation, I had managed to tell them a story about who I was, the kind of things I had done, and just who I am as a person, why I am so passionate about what I do. It was simply a method of communication that I had used in the course of that 40-minute meeting, and nothing more than that. I did not intend for it to have any other connected result later on. However, utilizing that communication opportunity in that meeting and narrating those stories had made sure that Neeraja Ganesh had retained an impact in that woman's mind to an extent that when she was reaching out to speakers for her global conference, it was a conference of all trained coaches from across the globe. I am just a student. I'm 21 and I'm an undergraduate student. In no way do I match the qualifications or the experience that all those other people on the panel had that day. However, that one interaction that we had and the stories I narrated there had enough power for her to not just remember and consume my story, but also go on and do something further. She wanted those stories to be known to a lot more people, and it moved her to the action, which was to invite me to that conference. And that's why, just like the slide has the 2 points, why is storytelling such an effective communication tool? It's not just going to engage your audience. It's not just going to make them remember who you are, but it's going to make them retain that information in a manner such that they're further going to be able to do something else with it. And it's always going to be like that hook which you've left them with. That's what your story does for you.
Absolutely. So that is most critical. We could be listening to stories for entertainment. The two of us here could be telling you very entertaining stories. But if it has not moved you to take some action, because underlying the stories, we are trying to present to you the what, the why, and we will come to the how of personal branding. If the stories do not move you to take some action there, then it's not been effective. If you have only been consuming it, but you've not experienced the good about it yet, and if you have not experienced the good, then obviously you will probably not move to action. Then that storytelling is still not effective. And I also want to tell you something. Don't think that Sneha and Neeraja have reached this kind of a brand presence overnight. Of course not. It takes time. And we have taken a lot of time. Some of the things happened unintentionally, like the sari or the 96 women registering. But some of the things have been very intentional. So like Sneha said, all of us have a brand. Whether we like it or not, there is a brand. You go and ask people on the street, in your neighborhood, to your friends and family, what is it that they recall about you? You will get some responses, and that's your brand. Now, if that's not what you want people to know you as, you got to work on it very intentionally.
Right. So now we've spoken so much about brand, and we spoke so much about why storytelling is essential to build that brand. So now let's look at the storytelling aspect a little more closely. How do you narrate, or how do you make up a good story? So that's why I'm going to give you a very simple formula, because we've all known that's one of the easiest ways for you to remember something. So a story in general has 5 parts to it. The first part is a hook. So according to me, in general, a story is a hook. But when you're going to be hearing 20 people speaking to you on an everyday basis, out of those 20, which one are you going to remember? That's why your story needs to have a hook. Something that's going to connect them, and something that's going to always make them remember, oh, she started off by saying this. Now I need to know the end of the story so that I can understand why she started off with this. That's a hook. Then you move on to set context. Why are you talking about this story? Or what is it that you're trying to bring out because of which the story is of relevance? So when Neeraja was talking about the sari story, her hook was talking about how the entire, out of the blue, she saw that post and where she was represented as a woman, as a Wonder Woman who wears a sari. Then she set context, talking about how that is something that is essential for your brand. Then we moved on to talk about why it's a catalyst. So when you're narrating a story, or when you're composing a story, there has to be something which is going to take that context forward. That is a catalyst. So something happened, or something was known to people, or somebody said something. That is a catalyst. Then there's an outcome. So what did you want to achieve in the course of this story? So in the course of my story, when I spoke about the Target Elevate conference, the outcome was that there was a brand for Sneha Ganesh which was created and which was being recognized by people. In Neeraja's story, the outcome was that Neeraja was being recognized as somebody who worked in the space of D&I, or who worked for women. And that was something that was being recognized. That is the outcome which needs to come out from the story, as the story is very blunt. And then there's a reflection. There needs to be something you're leaving people with in that story. So the way we left you behind with that one point. So if somebody is going to come and say, who are you? And your name. So who is XYZ? What is that going to answer for you? What is the reply you're going to get for your personal brand? That's something you need to reflect upon. So when you're making a good story, make sure that it contains each of these 5 elements, and you always leave people with something in the end so they don't just forget. Like, it's as simple. Why does somebody give you homework in college? Because they're going to be narrating a lesson for like 40 minutes, and anybody is going to end up forgetting it if it was not as interesting as a story. But more than that, that homework is something that's going to make you recall everything that was taught and have something to take back with you, saying, okay, I learned about this. What does that imply for me now? And that's why each of these 5 elements is extremely important when you're constructing a good story. And if you want your stories to be memorable and help you in cultivating your brand, start thinking of stories with these 5.
So now we want to look at what and where are those opportunities to make your brand visible, right? So we have a brand. People will remember you for something. But it has to also start to become visible, right? Not every day when you're walking on the road, somebody will come and say, hey, you are Neeraja Ganesh. You have to build that visibility through some platforms. So here is a story for that. So on that screen, some of you may recognize Apurva Purohit. She is the ex-president of Jagran and Prakashan, a media house in India. She now runs a startup called as Azol. And she's written 2 books. If you have not read them, I would encourage you to buy and read them. Lady, You're Not a Man. Lady, You're the Boss. So I'm part of another organization, a kind of a platform, industry body called as Bangalore Chamber of Industry and Commerce. I'm part of their women empowerment vertical. And we decided to invite Apurva Purohit to do some kind of a book reading of her book, Lady, You're the Boss. It's a very powerful book. Now, I'm connected with Apurva because I actually did a book review, which had kind of been posted on one of the online magazines. So I was connected with her. So I invited her and I brought her to this event. Now, at BCIC, it's a very hierarchical organization. You have the president and you have the chairperson of the women's leadership wing, etc. So when such events happen, what do you usually think will happen? The president will give, the introductory speech, and the introductions will be of the guest will be done by, say, the chairperson. The closure will be done by another senior person. But for a change, they said, Neeraja, you can introduce Apurva. And I'm thinking, because I did get her to the event, so maybe they gave me that job. What does introduction mean? So her office, her executive assistant had given me her bio, a 5-6 line bio, and she had very clearly told me, you will read it as it is, no changes. And that would have taken me 30 seconds. Now, this was the job that I had at this event. But one of the things that I always tell people is that every interaction is an opportunity. Here is an interaction and one doesn't know what opportunities will come from here. So I used that opportunity. So before I read that bio, I kind of spoke about the book and I said, this book, when you read it, you feel as if it is your own story being narrated. And it is. Every woman who will read that book will feel, oh my God, Apurva seems to be writing about me. I have gone through this. And then I picked one of the chapters from the book, which was about the imposter syndrome. And I said, I have also gone through the imposter syndrome. Some years back, I was invited. This is the story that I was narrating there at that event. Some years back, I was invited by MIT Sloan, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, to be a jury on their Global Innovation Challenge. So across the globe, people are going to be, putting in applications to be part of this competition. And I've had to be on the jury of that. The imposter within me said, Neeraja, who are you to even be, judging these people who've got such innovations, to their credit? But then I just calmed the imposter down. And then how I went about doing that and how I continued to be on the jury of this, very prestigious competition for 3 years was the story that I narrated. And then I read the bio and then I invited Apurva. What happened with that? It was not out of context because I was talking about the book, which is what we had invited Apurva for. I was talking about one of the chapters in the book, but I brought in an aspect of me through a story. And I left behind something with the people that Neeraja has not just come to introduce here, but you know what? She was in the jury of MIT's Global Innovation Challenge. An opportunity to make your brand visible.
So if you look very closely, you just see a lot of content, not to scare you away. But these are just the screenshots of a few posts that I had put up on LinkedIn. So like I told you a little while ago in the session, I've been writing very regularly on LinkedIn. And I've been putting up posts about the things that I'm doing, about any opportunities that I get, any people I get to meet. I've been talking about very regularly on LinkedIn. So 2 posts that you see here are posts about about things I've done in college. So in college, in the course of the last 2 years, I have had the opportunity to deliver sessions on building LinkedIn profiles, on how you can leverage LinkedIn for networking and things like that. So in the course of the last 2 years, I've delivered close to 17, 18 such sessions. And I've been posting about a few of them here and there on LinkedIn. Why have I been doing it? Purely with the intention to build my personal brand. Some people who are following me over there know that this is something I do. This is something I'm good at. Just for me to be able to make my brand visible. I did not have any inner motive when I was doing this. All I was trying to do was build the brand for Sneha Ganesh. However, after about like a month and a half or so, I received this message on LinkedIn from somebody from another university, not from my university. So till now, I've just been doing these sessions inside my university as part of a club within college. So it wasn't something external or something where I was being invited to or anything of that sort. However, I noticed this message on my LinkedIn which says, "Hi Sneha, I've been noticing your posts about LinkedIn profile building and the masterclasses that you've been conducting. And we'd love to have you as a facilitator to come over to our university and deliver one such talk." Something I really did not expect. I was doing it entirely for my own batchmates, my own college mates, just because I enjoy being on stage. And if you've not figured in the last 30 minutes, I love talking. So you put me anywhere and I will very, very happily talk. So with just that, I used to do it inside my college. However, because I started talking about it on social media and I started posting about it, it started increasing the visibility of that brand. So inside Christ University, people knew Sneha Ganesh to be somebody who delivers LinkedIn masterclasses. But now that brand had increased and the number of people who knew about it had gone outside Christ University. And in the course of that 2 weeks, I got 2 such invitations to deliver sessions at 2 external universities. One of them is at Christ University, Kengeri, and the other one is at Mount Carmel College. And both of which, I don't really have connections in those colleges. I don't have friends in those colleges. It just happened purely through that brand visibility I had created for myself. People approached me on social media. They said, "We've noticed what you're doing. We've noticed the brand you've built for yourself. And now we'd like you to come and do sessions for us."
So I'm conscious of time, Sneha. I think we are at 5:50, but we will take another 5 minutes if the audience can stay on with us. I know you may have wanted to go to another session. So the other point that I want to quickly leave you all with is all of this is our effort to build our brand and hence speak about it at an offline event, speak about it online, on LinkedIn, and many other platforms that exist. But what if somebody else speaks about you? And here is, something that I wanted to showcase, that I was a keynote speaker at Society of Women Engineers India. They had their annual conference maybe a few weeks back. I delivered the keynote, a 40-minute keynote. And after that, the women just came around and they kept me there for 4 hours asking me a lot of questions because obviously they were very inspired and, kind of wanted to take, my stories had moved them to action. So they kept asking me a lot of questions. They took pictures with me. But what I saw as I came back that evening and through the following day till today is each of them, and there were 1,200 women in the audience, almost every person putting out a LinkedIn post about that event and talking about my keynote amongst a few other sessions that they kind of were very happy to have attended and listened to. And that is the ultimate, place that we all want to reach with the personal brand that we have, that we don't have to talk about it. It's said that personal brand is what people talk about you when you are not in the room. And this is almost like that because you are not initiating all these posts on LinkedIn. And look at it, while everybody here spoke about the keynote that I did at SWE, here Pratiksha is writing about the TEDx talk that I gave. So now she started writing and people are talking about other things that I have done and I don't have to make that effort, right? Quickly, Sneha, you want to talk about this before we take questions?
Absolutely. So another little story before we end this. So in the course of the last year and a half that I've been working at Aspire for Her, my last role was that of a project manager. And it was a project manager for a year-long project with Google and NASSCOM Foundation. This was just something that I was doing at work. In the course of the last 15 minutes, I've told you that I'm still a student at college. So this is just something I'm doing in addition to college. And I don't specifically have expertise or certifications or excessive knowledge about project management. It's just something that I, as part of this role, I have learned. A lot of people, if you've noticed, people who do sessions on project management or people who teach project management or who are asked to talk about it are usually people who've got experience in the industry or having learned about the topic in depth. However, just last week, actually a week and a half back, I got approached by this particular student from a club in a university in Pune. And she said, I've been following the work that you do on LinkedIn. And I'd love if you can come and deliver a session for us on project management. That came as a complete surprise to me because, okay, I've been delivering sessions. We established that. I've been delivering sessions on LinkedIn. I've been doing masterclasses for LinkedIn. Okay, that also still made sense. Now, out of the blue, project management did not seem to be on my radar anywhere. It did not seem to be a topic that I've spoken about in the past. How did this suddenly come up? Because I was genuinely curious, I decided to ask her, why this topic? And she said, oh, I've been following your LinkedIn for more than a year and a half. And I noticed that you recently got a new position to be a project manager on a year-long project. And we really thought that somebody like you, who's a student who has come into a position like this, will be able to tell our students a lot about what this entails, what the role means, and the wonderful work that you've been doing, and how we can also get into the same place. And that again reiterates the importance of an online personal brand. It's not something that I have, in this case at least, done very, very intentionally. Of course, very important for you to intentionally build your brand. But remember that the second people start noticing you, there's also going to be a lot more that comes with it that they're also going to start noticing. And unintentionally, your personal brand is going to start getting developed. And that's why it's very important for you. In the course of the session, we've covered multiple different things, but for you to remember that when you're building your brand, make sure that you're doing it with enough and more stories and as intentionally as you're doing it, also keep it with the same innocence. When you're narrating a story, you do it purely because you want people to know that story. And that is the beauty of a story. It's not a lecture. It's not an actual session delivery where people come with 40 pointers and 20 slides and say, okay, X, Y, Z needs to be remembered and take notes. That's not what it is. A story is very natural. It's very subtle. It's very beautiful, but it leaves much more of an everlasting impact. And that's why it's said that the most powerful person in the world is the storyteller. And we'd love for each and every one of you to be that kind of powerful person in your own little worlds and become those powerful storytellers. And that's what we'd like to leave you with today. Neeraja,
yes, I was saying that we introduce ourselves as Neeraja Ganesh, Head of Education in ITISH, Sneha as a student, mother-daughter. But by the time in these 45 minutes, you have heard so many different aspects of us, which did not come in our introduction. And those are the elements of the brand that exist for us, which we need to, if we want that as the recall value, like we said, Sheryl Sandberg, lean in, right? As we want that as the recall value, we need to hone the same. We would love for all of you to be connected with us on LinkedIn. Those are our LinkedIn profiles. And I will stop sharing and see if there are any questions that we could take.
Yes. You can use the Q&A box as well as the chat box and send in any questions that you have.
Okay, Zahra is saying, how can I find an investor? How can I get more and more user apart from marketing on LinkedIn? Also, I'm a student right now. I cannot spend anything from my pocket. Now, I know this question was asked at the very beginning of our session. I hope not the funding part, but at least the marketing part of it, creating your own brand and your startup's brand would have received some clarity by now, because both of us have not spent any money in building this brand that we said. We spent time, I'm not going to deny that, but the time was spent doing meaningful activities which contributed to the impact that we wish to create. So Sneha did a lot of LinkedIn sessions because she wanted to, create that impact, and automatically it got her the brand. I am doing a lot of work in the space of women, and automatically it has created that brand for me. And then we continue to showcase it through social media, right? So that is definitely a way that you can start working on. You don't need money. That can come at a later point in time. Start building your brand by being very, very consistent with the messaging that you're putting out on LinkedIn or any other social media. The funding part is, another conversation altogether. Maybe we'll have an opportunity either through Connects with LinkedIn to have a conversation on that. Any other questions? I don't see anything on the Q&A, and I don't see anything on the chat. And since we've already gone past the time, and I know that some of you may want to be going to another session, if there are no questions, we will end the session. And thank you for being a very great audience here. We would love to hear whether this session made sense, whether it has moved you to take action, either here on chat, or if you connect with us on LinkedIn and tell us, that would also be welcome.
Yes. You've been a lovely audience. Thank you so much for listening to us today. And we look forward to connecting with all of you and to hearing and constantly seeing all your stories on LinkedIn as you continue to build your brands. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you. Thank you, Vanessa. Thank you for that.